in the blood-soaked duchies of Zaubervold, where vampires rule as nocturnal nobility and the wilds breed undead abominations, there lies a forgotten mountain town named Glockmire. It is a place of false peace, where villagers live as livestock, bound by noble blood magic, and every wrong move earns a death sentence. For centuries, its dark secrets have slumbered, hidden behind rain-shrouded walls and quiet tavern hearts. But on one storm-soaked midnight, a stranger stepped through its gated walls. A scarred pilgrim bound to the god of time and death. And with his arrival, Glockmire's carefully crafted lie of safety began to unravel. Few travelers dared traverse the monster-infested Dragon-Tail Mountains after dark, so the sight of a lone, towering figure walking toward Glockmire's gates was unheard of. Cloaked in black, hood shielding his face, the stranger stood nearly 2 meters tall, broad and silent against the raging storm. The night guard, drunk and drowsy from a losing card game, lumbled at the persistent knocks, rousing him from his stupor. Peering through fogged glass, he could make out nothing but the stranger's imposing frame. 2 silver toll, he barked, half expecting the traveler to vanish into the night like most woodland phantoms. Without complaint, the stranger bared a scarred palm and pressed 2 shining silver coins to his skin, an ancient test to ward off unholy creatures. Relieved, the guard fumbled open the wicket gate, instantly stepping back at the man's daunting size. Greed overriding protocol, he pocketed both coins, having the extra for his trouble, and grunted a lazy welcome. The Silly Goat Tavern's up the road. Don't stir up trouble, Lord Glockmire's watching. The stranger nodded silently and ventured into the lantern-dimmed town. The storm worsened, lightning splitting the sky to illuminate Glockmire's weathered rooftops, a forgotten settlement trapped between mountain shadows and noble tyranny. He soon spotted his destination, the Silly Goat, the town's only inn. Its warm fireplace glow a rare beacon of comfort in the desolate night. Inside, young Natalie Striga, sharp, artistic, and endlessly wary, sat carving a wooden figurine of her cat's stockings. Orphaned of her mother 3 years prior, she ran the inn alongside her father, trained from childhood to read strangers and defend herself with a hidden blade in her mother's silver hair clip. She did not hear the door creak open until her cat's sudden, tense stare alerted her to the newcomer. Natalie startled, setting down her carving knife yet never letting it stray far from her grip. Polite but guarded, she greeted the towering stranger, offering a room and mutton stew for a modest price. When he lowered his hood, she froze in shock. Beneath the hood was a face of cruel contradictions, aristocratic blue eyes, fair skin, and sharp features marred by a brutal mosaic of scars, blade gashes, burn marks, and hundreds of tiny puncture wounds ringed around his neck like a twisted collar. Torture scars. Survivor's scars. Yet despite his mutilated appearance, his voice was deep, gentle, and impeccably polite. He introduced himself as Cole, a traveling pilgrim. When Natalie pressed for his purpose in remote Glockmire, he revealed a taboo truth: he served Master Time, the god of death and natural order, a deity whose worship was forbidden and feared across all blood duchies. Natalie's blood ran cold. The blood duchies' vampire nobility defied death itself, hating Master Time and his servants above all else. She warned Cole of the mortal danger his faith brought him, shocked by his calm acceptance of the risk. Worse, the pilgrim sensed her buried grief unprompted. Speaking softly of her mother's death 3 years prior, an uncanny intuition that left Natalie feeling exposed and unsettled. After a quiet meal, Cole retired to his room. Left alone, Natalie noticed a bizarre detail. For all his travels through rain and wilderness, he carried no stench of the road, only faint damp leather and stew. No tired traveler smelled that clean. No ordinary man bore scars like his, spoke with godly insight, or moved with the quiet grace of a seasoned hunter. Cole was not just a pilgrim. He was something far stranger, far more dangerous. The next day, the town's fragile peace shattered. A petty brawl between two villagers turned deadly when Labor Felix spilled blood in public, a crime punishable by death under Lord Glockmire's vampire rule. The castle's black armored guards descended instantly, arresting the panicked Felix before he could flee. The entire town held its breath, knowing the dungeon nicknamed the Larder awaited him, a prison where criminals were drained dry as blood slaves for the nocturnal nobility. Plagued by the day's violence and lingering unease over Cole, Natalie grew frustrated when the pilgrim failed to emerge from his room by midday. Hot-headed and restless, she grabbed a master key and burst into his quarters, only to freeze in stunned silence. Cole lay unconscious on the floor, half naked, his body a canvas of torture wounds. The puncture scars circling his neck were no accident, they were the mark of a vampire's repeated feeding. Cole had once been a blood slave, a mortal livestock for the nobility, and he had survived the unsurvivable. Worse, in his hand rested a jawless human skull, its fangs stained faint red with dried blood. When Cole jolted awake, Natalie fled in embarrassment and shock. Soon after, the pair reached an uneasy truce, and Cole revealed his true identity, a paladin of Master Time, tasked with hunting rogue undead and restoring the natural order of death. For a decade he had wandered the realm, laying trapped spirits to rest and destroying abominations that defied fate. To ease her curiosity and steel her nerves, Cole shared tales of his travels, clearing haunted dwarf mines, laying trapped minor ghosts to rest. But their calm conversation ended abruptly when a putrid stench of rot and decay washed over the forest. The scent of unholy undeath. Venturing into the woods, they stumbled on a nightmarish clearing, 4 mangled Ryko corpses scattered across the grass, black ichor poisoning the earth. The sight shattered Natalie's composure. Unearthing repressed grief over her mother's death at the hands of a forest monster 3 years prior. Cole comforted her silently, letting her tears fall as she finally processed her years of buried trauma. After Natalie regained her resolve, Cole began his sacred rites. He doused the gull corpses in pyre wine, igniting white-hot flames to burn the abominations free of their mortal binds, chanting ancient, godly hymns to release their trapped souls. But the fire twisted, turning oily black and green, a clear omen of forced necromancy. These Ryko ghouls had not risen naturally, driven by divine intuition. Cole tracked the undead's trail to a rocky cave lair, and made a horrifying discovery. Lying discarded outside the tomb was the drained, gaunt corpse of Felix, the villager arrested days prior. Using his forbidden corpse sight, Cole peered into the man's final moments, witnessing dozens of vampires feeding on him slowly, torturing him to death. The truth crashed over them both. Glockmire's vampire lords were experimenting with necromancy, using drained blood slaves to fuel and control undead abominations to unknown ends. Fearing for Natalie's life, Cole forbade her from further involvement, refusing to drag her into the nobility's centuries-old cruel schemes. Natalie realized in that moment she could no longer ignore the truth. Her peaceful hometown was nothing but a cattle pen for bloodthirsty monsters. The quiet villagers, her father, herself, all were just waiting livestock for the nocturnal nobility. We thought Glockmire's walls kept the monsters out. We were wrong. They locked us inside. The vampires do not merely rule this town, they farm it. They drain our people, twist our dead, and weaponize undeath to expand their cruel power. The scarred pilgrim came here to break their order, but waking a caged ancient evil comes with a deadly price. The game has changed. The hunter has entered the noblesse den, and the night is only just beginning.